All right, this tutorial is for activity 125. The first thing we're going to make is this item here that we're calling a conduit bracket. Some of the information that we're going to put into Onshape is different than if we were to be using Fusion. Really, the only thing is that it's telling you the XY plane, which is your front view in Fusion, but on Onshape, it's your XZ plane. So everything else should be the same. That's the only difference we're going to have. So we are going to sketch a 20 millimeter by 30 millimeter rectangle. So we're now in Onshape. Before you start creating your sketch, we're going to come up to the 3 lines up here, go to workspace units and change, which I already have, the default unit, which you have as inches, to millimeter. That way, when you go to type in your measurements, you don't have to worry about typing after every single number. So now we're going to create the sketch on our front view. Okay. And it was a 20 by 30 millimeter rectangle. So I'm going to do a center point rectangle actually. So notice the R here. You can then click R on your keyboard instead of coming over here. So center rectangle. Now all you have to do is click to place it and the box comes up on the bottom. So 68.58. All you have to do is start typing. Do not click into that box. So I'm just going to put the 20 there. Whoops, 0. Enter, and notice how it goes to the next box. So this one is the 30. Enter. And we have this cute little rectangle here. So I'm going to hit the check mark. So that's our 20 by 30. So notice how we can double check. The height here is 30. On our front view, this is the 30 millimeter. Okay. So this bullet point's done. We finished our sketch. We're now going to use what's called revolving. So all this means is the object you have created, instead of extruding, which is pushing it in or out or removing it to make it three-dimensional, we can have it rotate along an axis that then makes it the the 3D view. So the revolve tool is right next to the extrusion. You can also do Shift W on your keyboard. So we're going to click that. And it says to rotate about the 30 millimeter angle. So first thing is selecting what we want to revolve, which is this. And now we need to select the axis. So it really doesn't matter which side you select. You just have to click inside revolve axis. Otherwise, it's going to be red. And you can pick either the right or the left side. I'm just going to pick the right side. Once you see it turn blue, if you come over here to the isometric or trimetric view, you can see that it's basically now a cylinder. So this is another way you could always draw a cylinder, is do the rectangle, and like if you don't know the diameter, for example, but you know the height, you can just make your rectangle and then revolve it, and that'll make the diameter for you. So now we have that little view there. I'm actually going to hide these other views just so that it's a little more easier to see. So now we're going to sketch a 10 millimeter square centered on the top of the cylinder. So now I'm going to come over here, create a sketch on the top of the cylinder. I'm going to go to the top view now so that it's centered. And we are going to want to do a center point rectangle. If you just keep hovering, it'll create the center for you. So you want to make sure that if you're here, this is going to just make it horizontal with the origin. We don't want to do that. You want to keep moving around until you see this orange square. Once you see that, then you can place your square. So click, 10, enter, 10, enter. So it's a 10 millimeter by 10 millimeter square. Hit the escape button and then just drag your dimensions outside if needed so they're following proper dimensioning guidelines. Then we can finalize this sketch because that part is done. It is a little hard to see, but if you hover over, you can see your square. So I'm going to go back to the three-dimensional view. We finished our sketch. So now we're going to extrude the square we just made, 15 millimeters. Notice how it says additive. So we're creating an additive feature because we're bringing it up and adding onto the object rather than subtracting into it. So extrude, click on your square, and this we want to be 15 millimeters. Hit the check mark, and voila. So now we have that view here. It's starting to come together. If you see here, we just really have to add this little bit here and this little part on the bottom, and then we're done. So first thing we're going to add is what's called a fillet. So it's a 5 millimeter fillet, which basically just rounds the edges and kind of smoothens out where you select. So we're going to do it up here where we made the rectangle, and ours is more square right now. So we're going to add the fillet onto all parts of the square here, all these edges, to round them out. And we want it to be a 5 millimeter fillet. So the fillet, if you come over here, you can hover over and see this one's fillet. And then later we're going to be adding a chamfer. So first I'm going to do is the fillet. And you're just going to select all the edges. Sometimes you can select them through the shape, but otherwise you can just rotate it so you can get all of the sides. So really, if you look at it from the top view, this is what you should see. And if you rotate it around, you can see it this way as well. In order to rotate it like this, I'm just holding down on the right part of my keypad, or if you're on a mouse, the right part of your mouse. And if you want to recenter it, go back to that three-dimensional view. And it is defaulted to 5 millimeters, but just double check before you hit the check mark to ensure that it is 5 millimeters. So we're going to hit check. We now just have to add a 5 millimeter and 30-degree chamfer to the bottom of the cylinder. So that's this part right here. So it's going to be a 30-degree angle, and it's going to be 5 millimeters. So really what this is doing is our 30 is this whole part here. So we're having the chamfer come in 5 millimeters, and then it's that angle that it's going to create is 30 degrees. So chamfer. If you can't select the circle here, it may be easier to rotate this so you can select the circle on the bottom. You want to make sure you're selecting the bottom, not the top, because otherwise it's going to add it on the wrong place. So we want the circle on the bottom. If you look from the front view, you should see it here. So we want a distance of 5 millimeters, but we want a distance and angle. So you just have to, where it says chamfer type, click on the arrow, and then distance and angle. And we want the angle to be 30 degrees versus the 5. So here we go. Check mark. And then the conduit bracket is done. If you look at the trimetric view, you can't see it. Same with the isometric. So you really, if you want to be able to see the chamfer, you just kind of have to rotate it a little bit yourself or look at it specifically on a head-on view. All right? But this part is complete.